to a portion of that project and see the credit on their utility bill. And we think about who can subscribe to a community solar project. It's renters and residents of all kinds, businesses, municipalities, and homeowners, and even nonprofits and schools. So all classes of utility customers can subscribe for community solar. And the benefits, community solar has benefits for the people who subscribe to it, but there's also benefits for the whole community. And that is that it expands access to solar, of course, and there's savings for the subscribers, local generation of clean energy. And of course, there's some folks from Solar One on this call that are interested in the local job creation and workforce development program that can be associated with community solar projects. Again, creating positive development for difficult sites. If you look on the right side of the screen, you'll see this is a project that's happening in Manchester right now, where they had this large landfill that they were really having trouble with because they weren't able to cap it. And they were getting fees from the DEP, on a regular basis. And through community solar, not only were they able to lease that site and have positive development with solar panels, the developer, as part of that project, included the capping of that landfill site in that project. So it was like a triple win for that community. And also it's just, it's something that we feel proud about, having this solar available for residents in our community. You can see the top picture is a very large community solar installation in Perth Amboy that also had a job training program that was associated with it. And they hired people from that job training program to be installers on that program. So that's a benefit for that community as well. So when we think we're going to shift over to how community solar works for the residents. And the way that it works is that the residents will subscribe to a community solar project, and they'll look at how much energy they use on a general monthly bill and sort of reserve that amount of solar generation for them. And then they'll get a credit for that solar generation on their utility bill, similar to if they had solar on their own roof. And I'll go a little bit in a moment into the differences. And then they will, separately from that, they will get a bill from the community solar program for the cost of belonging to the project. And when you take the cost of the savings that the credit that they receive on their utility bill, and subtract the bill that they get from the community solar developer, that will result in a savings. Generally speaking, most community solar projects in New Jersey are currently between 5 and 20% of savings for the resident. It'll vary from project to project, and many of the projects offer increased savings for low and moderate income residents. So again, here's an example of a bill from Newark's all PSEG, right, Matt? Yeah. Okay, so this is what community solar will look like on PSEG. You can see right on the utility bill, there will be a credit for the amount of solar that was generated by the solar panels that are associated with that subscription. And then separate from that, you'll get a bill for the cost of having the subscription that will be less than that credit is for each month. And then when you take the two together, so you take the credit on the community solar bill minus the cost of the subscription fee, and that will be your savings for the billing period. I just want to pause here. This is something that folks often have questions about, and I just want to make sure that I explain that clearly. Does everybody feel like they're understanding that so far?
I have a quick question. I may have missed something. This is Karen. Did you address condominiums, townhouses, places like that where we don't necessarily have the exact freedom of a homeowner, if you will?
That so if you have, do you mean that you don't get your own utility bill? It's paid for by the condo association or something like that?
No, we get our own utility bill, but we can't put solar anything outside of our windows or anything of that nature, I'm saying.
Yes, so you don't have to have any place to put solar to be a subscriber in a community solar project. The projects will be located off-site, and they'll
Oh.
reserve a certain portion of that project to be associated with your utility bill. And even though you're in a condo that's, elsewhere, you'll get that credit, very similar to as if you had the solar on your own roof at the condo.
Oh, okay. I'm so sorry. I didn't hear that part.
No, that's all right. That's a really important point to drive home. And so it'll help you understand the other things that we're going to talk about. So I'm glad that you brought that up for clarification. Is there anything else about how the billing works for residents? Ooh, see that there's a chat. Let me just look at it and see. Yeah, you don't have to get landlord approval. The only exception to that would be if you're in one of those types of residents where the electric bill is included in the rent. That's called like a master meter billing. And then in that case, the landlord would subscribe to the community solar project on your behalf. One of the rules associated with that is the landlord can't just subscribe to the project and keep all the savings for themselves. They have to find a way to share it with the residents that are in that master meter program. So it will always be to the benefit of the residents is the idea. All right, let's see. So one of the things that the state has really worked to do and how they've constructed their community solar project is to make sure that this project really benefits low and moderate income residents. And some of the things that projects can do, the ways that they can be constructed to really maximize those benefits for LMI subscribers is to reserve a percentage of the total site generation for LMI subscribers. So they could say, this is going to be a 10 megawatt project, and we're going to reserve 5 megawatts of this project only for LMI subscribers. And that also makes you more likely to be approved by the BPU in their selection process. They can also offer enhanced subscription pricing for LMI residents. That's one thing that we really saw a lot of in the first year of the pilot, is that projects will say, we're going to have a 10% savings for residential customers, but if they qualify as low income or moderate income residents, they can see a 15 or 20% savings. That's a really typical model in New Jersey's community solar project. And the other element that we look for in projects that are supportive to low and moderate income customers is that they have supportive contract terms. Like there's no fee to leave if they have to leave the project. There are not penalties for late payment and that kind of thing. So those are things that we look for in projects that we want to consider supportive of low and moderate income residents. So they, like we said before, community solar has a lot of benefits for the community as a whole, and even for the municipality. And there are lots of roles that a municipality can take on in a community solar project. Probably the first one that comes to mind is site host. I'm sorry, I see the chat going off. I just want to check that and make sure nobody has a question. Oh, okay. So I'll get to that. So if the municipality has a site, like the examples we shared before with Manchester having that landfill site, that would be a good site for community solar. They can actually be the host themselves, but they could also be an anchor subscriber, which means that they actually subscribe to a project at the beginning, just to get the project started. If they take like a large facility and subscribe to a community solar project for 2 years, that can help that project have financial legs while they're building the subscriber base of residents. And that can be really supportive to a community solar project. Municipalities can also be outreach partners, spreading the word about community solar in the municipality, and also project ambassadors. One of the things that we're going to look at in a moment is the project that Newark's East Ward councilperson supported. And so, that's something that Newark's already had something of a history with. And then also look at your zoning and permitting. In some cases, there have been examples of permitting ordinances or zoning ordinances that had caps on the size of solar projects. And so municipalities will want to look at their permitting and zoning rules and make sure that there isn't anything in there that would prohibit a large scale solar investment for a community solar project. So if
I'm sorry, can I just
Mhm.
jump in real quick? I heard you mention that there were some pilot programs, like before we go too far off of the possible confusion of billing. We had a conversation several months ago at this point about community solar, and we talked about the possible confusion that might exist for residents in signing up. You know, there's all the switch to, you know, a clean energy provider for your energy, and distribution will be handled by PSEG, and you know, people have been burned by that. And so in your pilot projects, how have people, number one, been introduced to the concept, and how have they found the sort of like billing process? How smooth is it?
Well, so one of the things, yeah, this is a very nascent project. And just to be clear, this isn't Sustainable Jersey's pilot. This is the Board of Public Utilities pilot. They're administering this program. I actually have, I'm going to actually jump to a different slide to show you. Oops, no, here we go. Slideshow view from current slide. This is community solar in pilot year 1. And you can see that there's projects located all over the state, including in Newark. And even though these projects are permitted and ready to proceed, only a couple of them have actually started receiving subscribers. So a lot of the issues that you are discussing are still kind of being felt out. You know, how is the outreach working out? What are the points of confusion for subscribers? I do have a little bit that I can say about that based on some of the early outreach efforts that have been done. But you can see that it's all still very new in New Jersey. This is pilot year 1 of 3 pilot years. Pilot year 2, the applications are closed, but they haven't announced yet which municipalities have been awarded projects. So that's something that we're anticipating hearing about soon.
What are these numbers?
Oh, the numbers to show you which pin on the map. They don't refer to, they just show you which, like when you look at the map.
Oh, like in case I don't know where the town is, I can just,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
Okay, I get it. And this is the location of the solar array, or the location of the target of the subscribers, or is that one and the same?
This is the location of the solar array itself. One thing that's really important to understand about community solar is that you can subscribe to a project that's located anywhere in your electric utility territory. So residents of Newark can subscribe to projects that are located anywhere in that orange belt going down the middle of the state, sort of like a seat belt. Is the PSEG electrical territory, and residents and customers can subscribe to any project that's located in that area. There are benefits to subscribing to projects near you, and they may have additional outreach measures for residents and customers in their immediate area. But technically speaking, you could subscribe to any project, provided that they're open, that they're not already all subscribed for. And so I'm going to go back up to, I think I'm going to
Tracy, while you're there, I'm sorry to jump in, because I think Nicole brings up a good point. And I'm not sure if she was going there, but I've had this confusion in my business as well. Can you explain to everyone how this is different than deregulation and ESCOs and energy supplier stuff? Because Nicole brings up a good point. People are afraid to make these changes because they think that, oh, you know what, I'm subscribing to some other supplier other than PSE&G, and then if I don't pay attention to it, my term is going to lapse, and then I'm going to get this absorbent bill, and my rate's going to go up to 50 cents a kilowatt. So I think that there's a lot of confusion around it, and I thought that that's where Nicole was going, but I think it's good to clarify that at this point.
that is something that's so important. I actually have 2 slides about it for that reason.
Oh,
That
perfect.
So one of the big obstacles with community solar is that there's already been so many solar advertisements and I don't want to use the word scam, but things that were of dubious credibility or had, you know, where the price had an escalator on it as the term went on in, you know, in this space, that it's really caused a lot of lack of trust. And one of the things that, you know, so that's one of the outreach obstacles, is that it has that, you know, history going with it. And also it just sounds too good to be true. You know, that, you know, you're in an apartment and you don't have to do anything. You don't have to build any solar panels or anything. You're just going to sign up for this project and get 10% off your electric bill. Yeah, right. But actually, it is right. And this project is being managed by the Board of Public Utilities and overseen by the state. So it really does have that layers of protection for the consumer that you don't see in some of these other projects that have gone by. So that's one thing that's really important to message to residents and electric customers. And that actually brings in the role of the municipality, because there is such a checkered history with energy subscription stuff in New Jersey. Having a municipality say that we're doing outreach for this really raises it, you know, it shows that it's at a different level than those other past projects. And it can really create support in the community for a community solar project where it would be hard, you know, if they were just trying to do outreach on their own. I could tell you some of the early community solar ads I've seen going by on social media and everything. I'm like, oh my, they look just like the ads for those other types of projects. And it really, you know, having that press
Yeah.
release from the municipality or other outreach efforts is really going to be something that's very helpful to a municipal or to community solar in getting the subscriber base that it needs. Let's see. I have one I'm looking for. I'm just sort of picking my slides willy-nilly now. So this is, I wanted to show you, this is some community education efforts that municipalities have been working on in, you know, in New Jersey, and it'll give you a sense of some of the things that can be done through these outreach efforts. You see down on the, or at the top on the right-hand side, this is the town of Secaucus. And what they did is they put up information about community solar, just a basic, you know, description of what community solar is. And then they listed all of the community solar projects that are open to Secaucus residents that are currently taking subscribers. So they didn't pick a specific project to feature. They just have a marketplace of all the community solar projects that are open to their residents. Below that, you see an information sheet. This is from Sustainable Princeton. We are going to have a link available to this document for you soon. The BPU has actually asked them to edit a couple of the answers to the questions, which is why I don't have it for you today. But this will really help explain, you know, this is text that's been approved by the BPU and will help explain to residents the basics of community solar, and towns can take this document from Sustainable Princeton and amend it for their uses in doing outreach. So when it does that, Keith, does that sort of answer a lot of the things that you were, the points you were raising?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely it does, because the third party supplier stuff is real, and it's going to scare people, and I'm glad you clarified that. Definitely the endorsement and coming from the NJBPU is going to help give people trust and comfort in moving forward.
You know, another thing to know about community solar is that a lot of times when folks have solar on their own property, they can't use third-party suppliers or belong to programs like energy aggregations. I know Newark is not currently in an energy aggregation, but they might look to that for the future. One thing that's interesting about community solar is you can actually do both. You can belong to a community solar project and be participating in a third-party supplier or a aggregation program. So it's not like the municipality has to pick one or the other to support. And technically, theoretically speaking, you could, if you were at 100% through an aggregation of renewable energy, you could have more than 100% renewable energy associated with your billing account, because then you would get a community solar subscription as well. So you could do both, which is a very interesting component of that. So I don't want to go too over time because I know you have other agenda points, but I just wanted to give a little thought to what Outreach Newark would be interested in doing. I believe that, and maybe the decision isn't firm on this yet, but that you were thinking in Newark that rather than supporting a particular community solar project, you would be more looking to do that marketplace model where you sort of just educate about community solar and list all the projects that were available for Newark residents.
Well, I'm going to let Natalie chime in on this a little bit. I know that we had a conversation about sort of like the possible conflicts that can arise with the municipality supporting particular businesses. And so that whole idea of just sort of like sharing information about what this is, maybe even having a list of vendors, something like that, where people can go to the municipality for information, but the municipality isn't necessarily promoting particular businesses. I think that can be very tricky. But Natalie, did you have anything? I wish John was on because I know he's plugged into this as well.
Yeah, that's what I'll say is that John's really the best source of, commentary on this, because I know he attended that workshop where Secaucus and Princeton were featured in their materials, and he's actually interviewed a bunch of the folks that are proposing, and he coordinated all the city municipal letters of support for the applications that went in for the second year of the state's 3-year pilot. So John is in the weeds on this stuff and I am not. And so I know he's spoken with you, Tracy. So if you can maybe speak to, there were items I remember being sort of like hurdles that he thought we needed to sort of overcome in our outreach efforts. And I'm curious if you could just summarize them from your perspective and channel John for a minute.
Yeah, so like you guys were saying, John had expressed that he felt like a more appropriate choice for Newark would be to do general education about the community solar and how it works, explaining that billing structure to residents, which is a little bit of a complicating feature. One thing to know actually is that they're working on doing consolidated billing in program year 2, which would mean that both the credit from the community solar project and the charge from the project would be on this right on your utility bill, but that's not something that they're able to do right now. So for now, we're educating folks on what the current process is. Just thinking of it, there's some resources on the BPU's website. You can see that they have a listing of all the subscriber organizations that are eligible to work on community solar in New Jersey. That's currently up.
You're not sharing screen at the moment.
I am trying to find, I've got a billion tabs open and I'm trying to find the right one. I'm afraid that's like a function of my personality. I have to have a billion tabs open. But the one I want to show you is,
I think while Tracy is getting that, we should, as a green team, think about how we can support community solar as a concept in Newark. I've been working on some clean energy documents sort of going forward, and the numbers of the transition numbers that we need are staggering for the state, and so to be able to get as many folks sort of transitioned over, of course, this will also help generate more solar projects, more innovation in the renewables field, to be able to hopefully get better energy generation, better energy storage, and be able to transition out of fossil fuels that much more quickly. So I think that might be something that we can take on as a Newark Green Team, is sort of doing some of community education, because in addition to the municipality putting some of these structures in place. Oh, Erica has a little friend. In addition to putting some of these structures in place, we also need to just do some boots on the ground work, educating people. There's going to be resistance. There's going to be sort of like, wait, I signed up for that, and it started out cool, and then it like got really crazy. So there's a fair amount of hurdles that need to be overcome for that, and I think that we could take some time as a green team to sort of figure out how we can plug into that. But Tracy, did you find what you?
You know what? I think I must have closed that link because I'm not finding it. But I'm gonna email that. And the I did a little research before this call and found out all the projects that are currently open to Newark residents that are currently taking subscriptions in Newark. So we can give you that listing as well. There are 3 that are currently, including one for a project that's located in Newark itself.
Right.
So that'll be a resource for you.
Awesome.
One thing. Oh, yeah.
I saw that Diane had her hand up, so I just wanted to give her an opportunity. But don't forget what you were going to say. You're muted. You're muted, Diane.
I thought I would get better at this now. But anyway, like I was saying, I was going to add on to what you were saying, Nicole. I think about like my parents, they're not as informed when it comes to like solar, and, you know, coming from a Spanish community, the outreach, we need to try to find a way how we can teach them, and not only about the community solar, which sounds really interesting, but like they don't even know about having solar even installed in their homes. So like, and I would love to like give them what I know, but I also get the scary thought in the back, like once, you know, the third parties and all that, I'm like, I don't want to be in trouble afterwards. And then, you know, getting responsible for something that I maybe didn't know 100% on it. So that's a good one thing I wanted to point out, basically.
Mm-hmm. And, you know, that actually goes right into what I was going to comment on that Nicole was saying, that there really is a lot of space for education and making people aware of the fact that this isn't, you know, that one thing that Nicole was saying was that they may have had a bad experience with a third-party supplier in the past and really feel put off from doing anything like that in the future. And this is just a totally different project, and making folks aware of that is really such a supportive thing that the municipality can do. Another thing that you guys may note is in the original version of the Sustainable Jersey Action for Community Solar, there's no points structure for doing more general outreach, but we're going to be adding that we you know, have heard from a lot of towns that they would like to see that included for points in that action, and we're going to be adding that. So that will be available for this subscription or for this certification cycle.
All right. I saw that Naima put her hand up, and we want to acknowledge that, and then Sarah after that. So Naima.
Yeah, this is really helpful. I was one of those people who definitely was getting an energy, a lot of the solicitation from third parties and trying to figure out and I think I'm pretty educated, and I was like, whoa, this is confusing. So to hear that this new rollout is considering that is really great. I was wondering, what's the outreach, or how does this factor in like people in housing authority buildings or senior buildings, different kinds of like co-housing type of situations? Like, how do we, what are the barriers for those groups to participate with the savings? And I'm guessing they probably are a lot similar to being on the mass meter program or mass meter. And I wonder because.
So I see what you're saying there. So if they have that multimeter set up, it will be like what I said, that the person who is the account holder for that will subscribe on behalf of all those residents. And then they're required to do some kind of cost sharing where the savings are, you know, parceled out to all the residents. They can't just keep it. But if they're in an affordable housing complex where they have individually, you know, would they still receive a utility bill? They would subscribe just like anyone else, and they would probably get a higher % of discount, you know, because of the fact that by nature of being in the affordable housing complex, they would be considered LMI residents. But one thing that's really important to know is that one of the things the municipality can do is do that outreach to their affordable housing directors. So if you think about, you know, a solar company cold calling the director of an affordable housing development and saying, hey, I've got this offer for you. That's not going to go very well, probably. But if, you know, they're connected through someone at the municipality saying, you know, this is a program of the BPU, and, you know, these are some opportunities for you to look at. Here's some of the vendors we know are working in our area. That's going to go a lot better. And so that's one of the ways that the municipality can support that benefit coming to residents in affordable housing complexes.
And Sarah?
Yeah, I was just thinking a little more about the application process, because so we actually at Solar One did training with ICC in the year 1 pilot and got some of the trainees hired by a installer called Solar Energy Systems. Very exciting. We're part of several other applications for this second round. Fingers crossed they come through, also to do more job training and placement. But now I'm wondering, Tracy, since you mentioned there's going to be points awarded on those applications for the general community outreach, I'm wondering, like, how do we connect a lot of these? So it's all these different companies, right? Like you have a solar developer applying for the project and they have to do their own outreach. And a lot of these developers are not local and they're just cold calling random people. And so how do we, like, I've been trying, we got contacted by a developer and we were like, oh, like, let's talk to Ironbound Community Corporation. Like, we just do job training, not community outreach. So how do we connect the developers interested in applying for the next round of projects to the organizations, and then also make sure those organizations know that they should be getting paid by the developers to do this work, because the developers are going to make a bunch of money off of this.
Yes. Yeah, and that, you know, there's a lot of benefits that come to all of those things. Just to be really clear, when we're talking about points, there's kind of 2 point structures that are happening here. There's when a community solar project is formulated and it's proposed to the Board of Public Utilities, they get points for different attributes. Like if it's on a landfill, you get points for that. If it is, you know, got a high percentage of the capacity that's reserved for LMI residents, they get extra points for that. That's one set of points. There's also Sustainable Jersey as a certification program for municipalities, and they get points for doing supportive actions for community solar. And that's where we'll be adding the points for doing outreach. So it's 2 separate point things, but absolutely that all of what you were describing about the supporting people, you know, community organizations and knowing about community solar, we call that being a project ambassador. And, you know, so there's, you know, so the municipality would act as a project ambassador. Some examples of that are in Pleasantville, the ACUA, which is their utility authority, put solar panels on the landfill for a community solar project. And the mayor of Pleasantville connected the housing authorities with the project. And she acted as a project ambassador and made that introduction where, you know, like I said, if they had cold called that housing authority themselves, that may or may not have worked out. You know, another example of that is there is an organization in the town of Pennsauken that, you know, their municipality has a project that they're supporting that's out of house of worship. Actually, this is a really nice story. There was a house of worship that had a roof in such disrepair that they were actually considering condemning the building or doing something really severe because it was going to cost more than they had to repair the roof. And the community solar developer came in, and not only were they able to bundle the cost of repairing that roof into the project and really, you know, rehab that facility, but they partnered with the municipality and other local groups to support LMI residents in the larger Camden area. So that's another example of the multi-benefits of community solar. I like that story a lot.
So I feel like this group that I have here, we could probably have this conversation for eternity. And hopefully your minds are cooking, things are working. I really like Sarah's point. Natalie, that might be something that we can sort of like coordinate through the municipality to have, the developers. If you want to do a project in Newark, you need to go to the community. The best way to get to the community is through our community groups, of which we have many, and we can sort of like make that introduction. That might be a better way for the city to help support some of that outreach that the city itself can't necessarily do. I mean, they can do some, but they can't do all. And so that really, I think, will help build partnerships across the city. As Sarah said, make sure that those organizations are compensated for their time. We don't need any volunteer work being done around here, but this is exciting. We're going to thank Tracy so much for coming out. Tracy, if you have any of that deck that you can share with us and be available, I know that there are several people in the chat who have indicated that they want to connect with you. I'll be sending a couple connection emails as well. But this is definitely something we want to keep our eye on and help support. And I'm going to go off camera because my child is screaming for me. And Natalie, you have the floor for Office of Sustainability updates.
Okay, thank you so much. I have 15 minutes on the agenda and I know that we are behind schedule, and so I'm going to be very brief. But essentially the quick updates that I wanted to provide were on 3 projects. I'll start with the one that I think is of greatest relevance to this group, although they all are. But you'll recall that we are collaborating on the launch of a Youth Ambassadors program, framing sort of climate justice and bringing the perspective of our young people into the city's sustainability and climate action planning commitments. And so we have a working group that's meeting on Friday afternoons. We also have gotten over 20 resumes from fellows that would like to help sort of run the program. And I have interviews set up with 5, maybe 6 early next week, and hopefully we'll be, able to make a decision and sort of start the specifics. One of the big points that many folks on our sort of committee, our curriculum development working group came up with was the importance of being able to get together in person in some kind of hybrid model. At the moment, the city, there's no event permitting, there's no in fact, the tree planting didn't really get advertised all that broadly because the city is not necessarily allowing for large events. That's 50 plus people coming together to plant 25 trees. And so we're kind of in a little bit of an awkward place about how to design the program. At the moment, the plan is to have it be hybrid if we can get permission for that, and have that include sort of general introductions about environmental issues in Newark, obviously centering environmental justice, centering the sort of youth perspective, but also just sharing technical information about our exposure profile to sea level rise and storm surge and under future conditions, greenhouse gas, the results of our greenhouse gas inventory, et cetera, and then coupling that with essentially a kind of skills building, capacity building training, so that the young people are sort of able to own their story and be, leaders and change agents themselves, and serve as, be able to sort of have that sort of internal transformation that allows you to then become someone potentially in the front of the room. All of that is in service to doing broader stakeholder and neighborhood engagement. So starting with the green team, focused on the young people, and then bringing community presentations in the fall and winter. And so I'm mentioning that just to say that the intention here is that come September, October, November, we're having community meetings, hopefully at least some in person. We'll see where we're at with neighborhood groups, whether that's porch parties, whether that's, like church basements, whether that's backyards. I don't know what that's going to look like, but again, I want to recognize that that's the hope, is that these young people are presenting at these events that we're co-hosting with the Green Team. And the other flag and so Sarah just joined us. Sarah, if you want to take a minute to just introduce yourself real quick and say the 2 events. We did that at the beginning of the meeting, but I'm happy to pause before I move on to something else. Please.
I don't know that I get to introduce myself when I come in 15 minutes before the end, but I want to say we got 2 school gardens planted today, and it was not the nicest day, so it's very exciting to have kids out. So I'm Sarah O'Leary from Greater Newark Conservancy.
Yeah, it's basically winter. It was like 40 degrees most of the day.
It felt like winter.
So I hope they survive. Well, it's getting warmer. You're not going to have an evening frost. I don't think.
Yeah. This way, and we're just planting our lettuces. We're staying safe.
Well, awesome. Thanks for the quick intro. Okay, the other project that I wanted to bring folks up to speed on is that Resilient NJ, you've heard me talk about this for a little while now, is a regional planning process that brings together Newark and our partners sort of along the coast, Newark, Bayonne, Jersey City, Hoboken, all collaborating on this question of how to speak with one voice relative to the issues of hazards exposure, particularly flooding. So there's a time horizon of thinking about what impacts look like in 2070 and several waves of engagement at that regional scale. I am very behind. I'm at least 6 weeks behind on email catch up. At this point, I don't know that it's going to happen, that I'm ever going to catch up with my emails. So please call me if I owe you something and I haven't. But I was supposed to get all these partner emails out and so on and so forth so that folks like yourselves can participate and get, they're preparing sort of what they call a meeting in a box. They're preparing partner briefings. They're basically the engineering team that was hired by the state to support this regional resiliency planning team are preparing all of these materials and then counting on the local leaders to sort of be the disseminators of that information and to bring people into the conversation. So right now, the big partner briefing, there's a doodle for the cities to indicate their availability. It's going to be in the week of May 10th, I think is the Monday. It might be a 12. I can't remember when it starts, but that sort of second week in May is what we're looking at for having two partner briefings. One would be daytime and one would be evening. So I'm flagging it so that folks are, aware that that's going to be coming down the pipe. And the last thing I wanted to update on, and I think that will bring me to 5 minutes. My 15 minutes stretched down to 5. The last thing was this year, a little under that. Of those, only I think 15. A couple were incomplete. One was deemed ineligible, and one just scored very low in our ranking. Rubric that we use, and so the grant review committee has reviewed all of them, and we should be, clear. And I should connect with Audris, who's been helping with this project on the side as well. We should know who our winners are by early next week. We had a really great lineup of folks and a lot of themes that we saw come up repeatedly across sort of different wards of the city. One in particular was around waste receptacles. I think a lot of us recognize you might be walking in, you see a lot of litter and you don't, there's no place to sort of throw out the trash. And so a lot of neighborhood and block associations that wanted to come together and in one case decorate trash receptacles, in another case, just set them out sort of strategically near their busy intersections, et cetera. I'm trying to think of some of the other themes from that Love Your Block Grant for 2021. Definitely a good number of mural projects, good number of projects that involve sort of elementary schools and young people. So that's the kind of quick update on Love Your Block, is that we should know soon who all the winners are. And then, I continue to mention this, that in some of the cases where they're not nonprofits, they might struggle with the sort of reimbursement structure of the program because it is tax dollars. The services need to be rendered before the city issues payment, which means that if any of your nonprofits or organizations that you represent might want to be sort of like a project sponsor that fronts the local organizations the money to do the projects on the ground, that would be really helpful. And just let me know about that, and I can make those sort of matchmaking introductions. Okay, I think that's all for me. I'm sure you probably have questions for me. There's other things I'll just flag in case you aren't seeing it. A lot moving in the federal landscape. Just today, the Biden administration was hosting a bunch of international leaders for sort of a climate summit. I think yesterday or the day before that, AOC and Markey came out with a new Green New Deal that's got a lot of sort of like widespread movement behind it, and Climate Mayors just issued a report around sort of green and equitable recovery to the pandemic. What cities saw under the Great Recession was that the government funded infrastructure pushes, including the American Recovery Reinvestment Act, allowed for basically monies being pushed straight through to municipalities to do energy savings improvements and all sorts of other things. And so cities are very, like local governments are very ready to be like, last time we learned a bunch of stuff and now we want to do it better and actually give us money that's actually going to help us do work. But there's a lot of work happening in the city, I'm sure in the state, in terms of being ready to receive that money and implement it. The Biden administration has sort of 4 pillars around the work of their administration, and sort of racial justice, environmental justice, climate action. All of those are coming up. And so you see it just showing up everywhere. And just wanted to say that if folks are sort of not tracking that, there's an almost like mind-boggling amount of things to track. And we're doing our best, and we'll report up as much as we're able in these kinds of settings. And then I guess thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. If anybody has questions for Natalie, please drop it in the chat. Y'all know her email address. You can reach out to her. Again, I can't stress this enough. If you have updates that you want to share, you need volunteers, you have a position opening, use that Newark at Google Groups. You know what the email address is, newarkgooglegroups@gmail.com, whatever it is. And also props to Natalie and her team. The ERI was officially adopted by the Newark Environmental Commission at the beginning of the month. So much work has gone into this. Bravo to her and her team. It's beautiful. Please drop a link into the chat so everybody can check it out and use it. OMG, it was first envisioned for use for our developers, our sort of like the Environmental Justice Cumulative Impacts Ordinance, which was a model for the state ordinance. And so, which was an inspiration for the state ordinance, I'll say that. And so we want to make sure that it goes even above and beyond that usage. So please check it out, use it, refer to it. It's a model for the nation, and so we are excited about it, and we hope to be able to expand upon it and make more maps and layers as funding and availability for people to be able to have that expertise to do that work comes available. So we're doing—
Use it to justify your projects, use it in your fundraising, like use that data, because there's a lot of data in that report. It's 67 maps.
Agreed. So I'm so excited. Thank you, Natalie, for helping us out. Let me see if I can find my agenda. Lord, I done lost it. But I think, no, why am I doing that? Stop. Just randomly sharing screens. I don't know where it is, but I'm pretty sure we're at
Sustainable Jersey.
We're at that Sustainable Jersey. Yes, thank you. Sustainable Jersey, the next round is open, never ends, right? Like we just finished this, it's already time again. So that's only, I mean, we're not pressed for doing it. I don't think we have that many points that are running out, but if we want to do bigger and better things this round, we can. And the first round opens June 6th. So we just need to, our Sustainable Jersey subcommittee should go through and check to see what points are going to be expiring, so that we know what, if we do need to resubmit and what needs to be resubmitted. We can check out some of those outstanding ones that we're like, man, we should have got points for that. We just need to do X, Y, and Z, maybe get an ordinance passed, which is so simple, or a resolution. Or post some things up on our website, things that are happening already in the city. So there might be just some small hurdles to be able to get points. So we can take a look at those. That actually leads me to the last, one of the points that's listed here is committee meetings. You see for the 4 meetings that we've had this year, we've had guest speakers come. We're trying to share information. We just don't have room to have committees meeting in the meeting. And so we're asking our committees to make the effort to meet outside of this meeting. We have not had time for committee meetings because we run over just with the time that we have. So please do make an effort to get with your committees and meet outside of this meeting. The second round, as it's listed here, is due September 10th. We don't want to wait, of course, to the end. And we have a fair amount that's already done. If you haven't seen the report, I will try to pull it up and put it into the chat before we leave. But do take a look. It's very inspiring. Do remember the events that we have. Share your events on the Google Groups email address, which is just like not coming to my mind clearly. Audrey, is there anything else? Because I'm trying to get out of here on time. Like, can you imagine? Oh my goodness. Audrey, be my savior. Are we
I do
done?
have a question to pose, and it's just because I wasn't here for the last meeting, so I don't know what decision was made, but we've had some conversation about transitioning this time slot to an evening or weekend to make it more accessible to just
Yes, we
residents.
need
And
to-
have we done that, or?
No, we haven't. We need to send out, the doodle poll. We need to send out a survey just to see what works for people. We do want to make sure that people who are at work right now and who are sort of like at work to be at this meeting are still able to attend the meeting if we move it to a weekend or evening to make it more accessible for folks who are not able to attend because they're at work right now. And so we're trying to find that balance and make sure that our city representatives are still committed to attending and being plugged in. So we will follow up with that survey for that as well. I'll just, anything else? I didn't hear.
Nope.
No?
All good.
All right, fabulous. 229. Happy Earth Day, everybody. Bravo. That's exciting. All right. So if you don't have anything else, then I'm going to wish you all a happy, beautiful birthday. It is cold as whatever out there, but I'm still going to go outside. I'm going to take my child to the park. We're going to get dirty and hopefully plant a tree. Do something. Oh, and come out to our seedling giveaway if you're a Newark resident, especially. I mean, you can come out anyway, but you can come out especially if you're a Newark resident. Pick you up some trees and plant them, okay? Picking them up is only half the battle. Plant the trees afterwards. All right, thank you very much. See you next month.
Hi, everyone.
Oh, let's capture that chat, Nat. Can we get that chat? There was
Okay.
so much good information in there.
Yeah. Give me 1 second.
No.
I'm gonna do this.
Yay, and stop recording.
Who took notes?
Oh, who took notes?